Hello, I'm Jonah Feldman. I'm the Executive Director of the Bay Area Urban Debate League, and some of our coaches had asked me for some tips on how to run a practice, and I thought rather than trying to have the same conversation with a bunch of different folks that I can make a video that gave some ideas about a basic template and some founding principles, and hopefully that will be useful. So let me know what you think. If this is useful, I can try to make some more of these videos and maybe expand the video quality a little bit more. My camera and mic setup isn't that great. I can try to start putting some of the links in the video. So if this is a thing that people find useful, let me know and I'll try to upgrade it a little bit more. As it is, any links that I mention, I'll put in the description and you'll be able to find them there. So definitely one link that I'll be referencing is the Noddle website, which has a lot of really useful ideas about what to do during practice and activities to focus on. And you can log on to that website by going to www.urbandebate.org and then clicking on where it says log on to teach debate in the upper right hand corner. So my idea for what to do for a practice is to kind of create a general template that you can modify and change around to what works best for you and for your students. And there's ways to, even under kind of some of the same principles, have a little bit of adjustments. This is a recommendation for a 1 hour practice. You can, of course, extend the activities a little bit longer. If you're going for one 90-minute practice or two 45-minute practices, you can adjust. And the intended audience for this practice is novice students. So students using our novice pack don't have a lot of experience in debate. I'll make some videos about varsity students a little bit farther down the line, but I think for right now our biggest need is how to work with novice students. So the basic breakdown I have for the 1 hour practice is in the beginning, maybe you include about 5 minutes of icebreakers. I'm sure as teachers you all are familiar with and know many more good icebreakers than I do, but I'll include a link in the description to some websites that have good ideas for icebreakers. So you take maybe 5 minutes for icebreakers, 5 minutes for logistics, kind of reminding your students when practice is, when the next tournament is, how they can get the packs, all the sorts of nuts and bolts kind of issues. So then you have, let's say, about 50 minutes left in order to do the actual training and teaching in the practice. And my recommendation is that you split it roughly evenly between an activity that's focused on something of personal interest and an activity that's focused on the evidence pack. And then in both of those activities, the emphasis should be on student participation, getting students to speak, to make arguments, and to do debates or little mini debates. So if you're like me, I basically can't remember anything unless I have a mnemonic device. So for me, I tried to make the mnemonic device the 3 Ps, something personal, the pack, the evidence pack, and then participation. So if that's helpful for you. Think about it as the 3 Ps, personal, pack, and participation. So the first activity was something personal. And I think that's really important because, well, the topic is helpful as a common reference point between our schools for the league. It connects us to the whole debate topic that the country is using and other debate teams. But, for beginning students, it may take them a little bit of time to really get into the national debate topic. And while they're still figuring out debate, you want something that engages them a little bit more. So practice can be a way to try to bring up issues of personal interest and to try to hook them with things that maybe are really pressing for them or that they might find interesting. And then hopefully they'll start to see the connections between debate when they're debating at tournaments and the topic, and then the way that the skills they learn there can be used in many different parts of their life, which is ultimately our goal. We don't want them to learn debate just to win trophies at debate tournaments. We want them to debate in order to develop a set of skills that they can use throughout their life. And so having a part of practice which demonstrates that is really useful. So for the personal part of practice, you have a lot of different options. You can have the students do mini debates on personal preference issues, and that can be anything from who's the best musician currently to what's the best breakfast food, stuff like that. Ideally, it's better even if the students can come up with it, but it's good to have a list of really just kind of like opinion preference things for them to debate about. So that's kind of one option. And then you can also have them debate policy issues that are on more immediate subjects to them than perhaps the national topic might be. So, for example, you could have them debate on whether the rules of their school should be changed. Maybe the time periods should be different, or the way lunch is handled should be different, or maybe some of their family rules, like when their curfew is, or TV time, or those sorts of things. So again, it's the best is if they can come up with the topics, and because the whole idea is to try to get some topics that are super important to them and are engaged in. Another option too is try to get some research involved in it. You can have them bring in something they find on current events that they're interested in. So even just have them do a basic Google News kind of search and bring in something that they find, and then they can discuss and make debate arguments off of what's happening in those news sources about anything. So really, for this part, what they debate about isn't super important. The most important thing is it's something that they're interested in and that they want to talk about. And that's the idea. The pack as the second part of it is important because the pack is going to be the core of their tournament experience, especially when they're novices. The only thing they're going to debate about is the pack, and so there's a huge amount of benefits from them learning the pack. And then also the pack is set up to teach lots of different concepts. So the pack is kind of written in a way that creates building blocks for learning debate concepts, like a focus on impacts and solvency. The 1AC really just has the advantage is just problems and harms that exist in the status quo, and then a reason why the plan solves it. So the negative then is also set up to create comparisons between the plan and the status quo, to focus on those solvency and harm issues, and to introduce them into basic concepts about whether the plan can actually solve offense and defense, whether the plan causes more problems than not, root cause issues. So there's a lot of activities you can build out from the plan. So for both the personal activity and the pack activity, a little bit of discussion, a little bit of mini debates, focus on different parts of it each time. So like for the pack, you could just focus on the root cause issue for one practice, or just focus on other countries filling in for one practice, and that would be useful. And then participation, as I said, is super critical. You really don't want to have either of these activities be you or a volunteer that you bring in lecturing to the students. For most debate students, that's not really the kind of educational experience that gets them hooked. For a lot of debate students, debate kind of attracts personalities that want to be active, that want to be involved, that they like, getting up and performing and kind of showing their stuff. And so a lot of folks have a tougher time with lectures. And then also just one of the toughest parts about debate is getting used to public speaking. So it's really crucial to have that practice. And that's not really something they can do on their own. On their own, they could read the pack. On their own, they could do lots of different things, but it's hard for them on their own to give a speech in front of an audience. So that's a time where practice can be really crucial. So that's sort of the general outline. Have roughly 25 minutes on something of personal interest, roughly 25 minutes on something to the pack. And then for each practice, I'd recommend having an area of focus. And I'll recommend a couple areas of focus in the video today. And the ones I'll talk about are, you could have a focus that's like making a complete argument. And then on your activity that's about something personal, your focus is really on making a complete argument. And I'll talk about some ways to do that. And then when you have an activity focused on the pack, the thing that you're trying to push is making a complete argument. Or, the next practice, the next week, maybe you have a focus on cross-examination, which is another thing that I'll talk about as well. So then you would have a cross-examination on something of personal interest, and then you'd have a cross-examination on something according to the pack. And that's another place where the NAUTL website is really great, the urbandebate.org and then Teach Debate website, is they just have an endless list of different areas of focus that you can do, and different activities for each area of focus. So once you develop the outline, something like what I've suggested that meets your needs, then really you just can kind of go on to the Urban Debate website and come up with a list of 12 to 15 topics or whatever, and that covers your practices for the whole semester.